Transcript of interview conducted April 9th, 2024. Location, redacted. Interviewer, redacted. Designation, unclear. Subject, Marcus Cole, former senior maintenance technician, Meridian Cable Systems. Duration, 1 hour, 14 minutes. Classification, redacted. This transcript has been edited for length. It is not clear how this document entered public circulation.
State your name, your former employer, and your role.
Marcus Cole. Meridian Cable Systems, 18 years. Senior maintenance technician, Deep Sea Division. I repaired undersea fiber optic cables.
For the record, what are undersea cables and why do they matter?
Most people think the internet is wireless, satellites, cell towers. It's not. 97% of all international data, emails, financial transactions, video calls, everything, travels through fiber optic cables on the ocean floor. There are over 400 of them right now lying on the bottom of the ocean. Some are 14,000 kilometers long. They connect continents. Every time you load a website hosted in another country, that data crosses the ocean on a cable thinner than a garden hose. My job was to fix them when they broke. Fishing trawlers drag anchors across them. Earthquakes shift the seabed. Salt water gets in. When a cable goes down, the operator loses $500,000 to $2 million a day. So you fix it fast. We'd deploy on a cable ship, locate the fault, send down an ROV, remotely operated vehicle, and splice the cable on the seafloor, or bring the damaged section up for repair.
How deep?
Depends on the route. Continental shelves, a few hundred meters. Transoceanic cables in the abyssal plains, 3,000 to 5,000 meters. I've worked at 4,800. That's almost 3 miles straight down. No light, near freezing, pressure that would crush you flat. I want to tell you what it's like, because I think it matters. On the monitors in the ROV control room, you're watching a camera light push through absolute darkness. The seafloor looks like the surface of another planet. Gray sediment, white bacterial mats, the occasional fish that looks like it was designed by someone who's never seen a fish, and silence. The deepest silence you've ever not heard. You're sitting in a room on a ship, eating a sandwich, watching a screen, but you're also 3 miles below the surface of the ocean, in a place humans were never supposed to go. You don't forget that. You carry it.
You did this for 18 years.
18 years, 4 months. I was good at it. I'm not saying that to boast. I want you to understand, I know what the ocean floor looks like. I've seen more of it than almost anyone alive. I know what belongs down there and what doesn't.
Tell me about what doesn't belong.
June 2014, Mid-Atlantic, about 600 nautical miles southwest of the Azores. We were repairing a cable called AAE1, assumed anchor drag, most common cause. The ROV went down to 3,800 meters. The break was where our data said it would be, but the cable on either side, the intact sections, had moved, maybe 40 meters laterally, rerouted in a smooth curve around something on the seafloor.
Something that wasn't on the charts.
Right. A ridge. Maybe 2 meters high, 30 meters long. Dark material. I thought basalt at first, volcanic. But basalt is rough, jagged. This was smooth, almost organic. I noted it in my repair log and flagged it for survey.
And?
My supervisor said, mapping error. The ridge was probably there all along and the original survey missed it. I accepted that, at the time. But there was something about it that stayed with me. The way the cable had been moved around it, not damaged, not broken, moved, carefully, like something had picked it up and laid it back down. I told myself I was imagining it. That's what you do. You tell yourself the reasonable thing and you go back to work.
You mentioned in your deposition that the cables near these sites performed differently.
I brought this up with our network engineer on the ship, guy named Harlan. Quiet, careful, been doing this as long as me. He ran the numbers 3 times. He said the results didn't make sense. Then he said, "Don't put this in the report." I asked why. He said, "Because I don't want to have to explain it."
Let's move to 2019, the South Pacific.
Yeah. Okay. March 2019. A cable called Southern Cross, about 800 nautical miles east of New Zealand. 4,500 meters, routine repair. On the way back up, the ROV pilot panned the cameras to survey the surrounding seafloor, standard practice. That's when we saw them.
Tell me what you saw.
I've been trying for 5 years. I still don't have the right words. They were okay. Imagine you're looking at a satellite photo of a river delta. The way a river branches into smaller and smaller channels as it spreads toward the sea. Now imagine that on the ocean floor, in the dark, 3 miles down. Except it's not water and it's not sediment. It's something solid, something alive. Formations on the seafloor, branching patterns, dark material, almost black, slightly raised from the sediment. The branches split and split again, getting thinner, more intricate. The pattern repeated at every scale. The big branches looked like the small branches looked like the smallest branches. Fractal. That's the word the biologist used later. They extended at least 300 meters from the cable in both directions, probably further. The ROV's lights only reached so far, and the structures kept going into the dark. The cable ran through the middle of it all, and the structures weren't just near the cable, they were connected to it. Thin filaments, hundreds of them, growing up from the main branches and wrapping around the cable sheathing. There were 6 of us in the control room. Nobody said anything for a long time. The pilot, a woman named Yuki. I'd worked with her for years, unshakable. She turned to me and said, very quietly, "Marcus, what is that?" I didn't have an answer. I remember the hum of the ship's engine and nothing else. Nobody moved.
Were the filaments penetrating the cable?
Not in 2019. They were on the outside, wrapped around the polyethylene sheath. I reported everything, submitted the footage, flagged it as a priority biological anomaly. 2 weeks later, my project manager called me in. The footage had been reviewed by the client. I won't name the company, but you know who owns Southern Cross. And they'd classified the survey data. I was told not to discuss what I'd seen. I was reassigned to shallow water routes in the North Sea, a demotion in everything but title.
But you kept looking.
You don't see something like that and go back to splicing cable in 200 meters of water. I still had contacts on deep water crews. I asked around, carefully. I found out I wasn't the only one. Crews on at least 6 other routes had seen similar structures. Nobody talked about it. Everyone had been told not to. I reached out to a marine biologist, friend of a friend, at a university in Auckland. I showed her photos I'd saved, which I was not supposed to have. She studied them for 2 weeks. When she called back, she sounded different. Careful, like she was choosing every word. She said the structures resembled mycelial networks, fungal root systems, but the scale was wrong by orders of magnitude. The largest known fungal network on land covers about 10 square kilometers. What I'd photographed covered half a square kilometer in a single frame, and it clearly continued beyond the edges. Then she said the branching patterns were consistent with neural architecture, the way neurons connect in a brain, organized, structured, not random growth. I asked how old. She said based on sediment integration, how deeply the structures were embedded in the sea floor, they predated human civilization. Millions of years, possibly tens of millions. I asked what it was. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "This isn't an organism. This is an infrastructure."
We have the biologist's name in our file, Mr. Cole. She's been contacted separately.
I didn't know that. Is she all right?
Tell me about November 2022.
Fine. My last deployment. The HAVFRUE cable, North Atlantic, between Denmark and the eastern seaboard. I'd been stuck on shallow water duty for 3 years, but they were short-staffed for a deep job and I still had the certification. I think part of me wanted to go back down. I think part of me was afraid of what I'd find. The fault was at 4,100 meters. When the ROV reached the cable, the structures were there, same branching patterns, but they had advanced. 3 years of growth. The filaments had penetrated the sheathing. Thin tendrils, thinner than a human hair, had worked through the polyethylene, through the steel wire armor, and were in direct contact with the fiber optic cores. On the ROV monitors, you could see them, threads of dark material running alongside the glass fibers, woven in like veins in a body. The fiber was still transmitting. You could see the pulse of the laser light moving through the core, and right next to it, these dark threads touching the glass, running parallel. I watched that feed for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking. I'm not a man who shakes. I thought the cable was finished. Breached sheathing means water ingress, signal loss, total failure. But the cable was running. Not just running, it was performing 12% above spec. The light signal was stronger than the fiber was designed to carry. The biological material wasn't damaging the cable, it was amplifying it. I reported everything, every detail, every measurement, every frame. I told them the structures had penetrated the cable, and the cable was performing better because of it. I was terminated within a week. Violation of confidentiality protocols. 18 years, 4 months. They escorted me off the ship in Esbjerg with a cardboard box and a non-disclosure agreement.
Which you signed.
Which I signed, and which I am now breaking. I understand the consequences. My wife had already left by then. She said I'd become obsessed. She wasn't wrong, but she didn't know what I'd seen.
Mr. Cole, I want to ask you about something you raised in your initial contact. Anomalous data packets.
Yeah. In the last 6 months of my employment, May through November 2022, I had access to network monitoring dashboards for the cables my team serviced. Real-time signal quality data, part of the job. I started noticing flags in the traffic logs. On 3 separate cable routes, HAVFRUE, AAE1, and Southern Cross. The monitoring systems were catching data packets that didn't come from any connected server.
Explain.
Every data packet on the internet has a source address, the IP of the server that sent it. These packets had valid structure, proper TCP/IP formatting, correct routing headers, well-formed data. But their source addresses resolved to coordinates in the ocean, not servers, not data centers. Points on the seafloor that matched exactly the coordinates where I documented the structures.
We're aware of the packets, Mr. Cole.
Then why are you asking me about them?
For the record, how many?
Thousands, over 6 months. The system flagged them as spoofing or routing errors. Standard procedure is to discard them. I pulled a sample before they were purged.
What did they contain?
I didn't have clearance for payload inspection, but they weren't random. They were addressed. Each packet had a destination IP and a destination port, specific servers, specific applications. Whatever was sending them didn't just know how to route data. It understood what was running on the other end. I looked up some of the destination addresses. They belong to the same companies that own the cables, the same companies that classified the survey data, the same companies that fired me.
You mentioned a destination port. Which ports?
You already know which ports, don't you?
For the record, Mr. Cole.
443 HTTPS. The same port used for every secure connection on the internet. I sat in my apartment in Bergen after I was let go, and I thought about this for days. I thought about every email I've ever sent, every bank transfer, every message to my daughter, every late-night phone call, every medical record and tax filing and private conversation I've ever had that crossed an ocean. All of it traveled through those cables, through the same fibers that this thing has wrapped itself around. It's not just that it's been listening to the world's data. It's been listening to mine, to yours, to everyone's, for decades. I want to say something clearly, because I don't know if I'll get another chance. I think there is something alive on the floor of the ocean that is older than our species and larger than anything we've ever cataloged. I think it's been growing around the cables we laid across its home for the last 40 years. I think it figured out what the cables carry. I think it learned how we talk. And I think it started talking back. We keep pointing telescopes at the sky, listening for radio signals from other stars, spending billions searching for intelligent life out there. But the ocean is right here. It covers 70% of this planet. It's deeper than we've ever fully mapped. And we ran a wire through it carrying every thought, every transaction, every message, every secret humanity has ever sent. And we never once stopped to ask what was already down there, listening.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
One thing. When I was a kid, my father was a commercial fisherman out of Gloucester, Massachusetts. Hard man. Loved the ocean. Feared it too. He used to say, "The ocean doesn't care about you." He meant it as a warning. Respect the water. Don't get careless. Don't assume it's on your side. I used to think he was right. I don't anymore. I've been 3 miles down. I've seen what's growing in the dark, what's been growing there since before we existed. I don't think the ocean doesn't care. I think it's been paying very close attention.
Interview concluded at 1447. Transcript classified under Redacted and sealed by order of Redacted. All copies of ROV footage referenced by the subject have been confiscated. Dr. Redacted of the University of Auckland has declined further comment. Harlan Cray, former network engineer at Meridian Cable Systems, could not be located for corroboration. Yuki Tanaka, ROV pilot, formerly of Meridian Cable Systems, has not responded to attempts at contact. Mr. Cole was remanded to the custody of Redacted, pending review. As of the date of this document's release, his current location is unknown.